Guys, it's a pleasure to have you once again at this monthly event of the Azure Nigeria User Group. So today we have another interesting speaker, a good friend, Saimo. Saimo, it's a pleasure to have
Uh,
you.
Thank you very much, Malga. Like I usually call you, I call you Malga. You know, you are my boss. So, it's very nice to be with my boss this morning to share my knowledge around my around virtual network and
Yeah.
how it works and how companies and individuals can use to enable their resources to interact together. So it's just going to be a very interesting section and brief for that matter. So let's get along. So
Thank you.
I will first of all start by greeting the audience. Good morning, wherever you're joining us from. Time zone might be different, but of course, it's morning in my own part, Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. I know a lot of people will be viewing us from maybe different time zones. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon. All right, so my name is Imo Etuk, as Malga has rightly said. So I'll be taking you on anatomy of Azure Virtual Networking. First of all, when you see this title, you wonder what is anatomy. Of course, when we are doing biology in school, anatomy can mean the heart of something. So we are just going to simply be talking about the heart of virtual networking on Microsoft Azure and how you can use it to do what you are doing on Microsoft Azure. So moving on, we are going to take a look at who am I. Of course, you know me already. People, I have a lot of people that have already been my friends on LinkedIn, and a few things to do. Maybe you don't know about me is that I have over 9 years of experience in IT, and I deal mostly on IT infrastructure management and both on cloud and in on premises. So I've also touched parts in terms of cloud security and DevOps. So I have certification in Azure, DevOps, and Azure security, M365 security, and AWS as well. So I also work across the community, both Microsoft Azure Nigeria and the AWS community, because the aim and goal is to empower the community. So that is why I have that passion. So moving forward to the agenda that we have for today, we are going to be looking at what is Azure Virtual Network. I know you already know the meaning, but then I'm going to try as much as possible to shed more light in addition to what you already know. So we're going to look at the architecture of Azure Virtual Network, how it operates, and also look at what resource group is, and then talk about NIC, network interface, then talk about public IP, subnet, then we discuss a bit about network security group and how you can use it. We also talk about virtual network peering. Then we carry out some demo. Our demo today is going to be that we are going to, when I made mention of virtual network peering, we are going to do a demo on how we can have the global and regional peering, making resources in these regions or in the same region and different regions to talk to each other, being on different network or the same virtual network. So we're going to see how that works. So now moving forward, so let me throw the question to the audience. If you have been asked, what do you understand by Azure Virtual Networking? I know the first thing that comes to your mind will be that it's it's a resource that enables 2 to 3 resources to communicate with each other on Microsoft Azure. So most people might limit it to, I can only use it on Microsoft Azure alone. No, it goes beyond that. So Azure Virtual Network can actually enable us to establish communication between resources on-prem and also on Microsoft Azure and the public internet. So if these keywords are not included, meaning your understanding of Azure Virtual Network is not complete. So you must understand that Azure Virtual Network provides a secure way. Do not escape that word secure, because whatever you put in Microsoft Azure Virtual Network does not traverse over the public internet until you want it to do so by attaching public IP to the network interface. So now it's a way of connecting securely to Azure. You establish secure connection between Azure resources and on-premises resources. The few things which, because of time, we might not be able to touch it today, because I actually intended to cover everything as regard Azure Virtual Network. We might not be able to talk about side-to-side connectivity or maybe point-to-side connectivity, but at least I'm going to throw a bit or some light on that and how those things work. So now these resources on Azure that you can establish connection, secure connection between them are, we have the VMs, we have web apps, we have a databases and on-premises client computers. Can actually do that. So by so doing, if you are very familiar or if you are beginning to get started with Azure Virtual Network, you should be able to know that there is a way. Once you create a virtual network and there's a subnet. Subnet simply stands for subnetwork. We know it as subnet, but it's an abbreviation for subnetwork. So once you create a virtual network, you need to create a subnet. What do you use subnet for? We are still going to talk about subnet in detail, but let me just talk about it briefly. You use subnet to create a network range, IP a class range for your resources within that virtual network. Subnet comes in to help us create of course, we all know that IP version 4 is very limited. And we have not fully utilized IP version 6. So for us to have enough IP to accommodate our resources, that's when we have to bring in subnet and also help in isolating our resources. For instance, I can have one VM instance and have another VM instance, and both of them are in the same network, virtual network, but in different subnets. So it helps in segmenting and isolating our resources. And also, when we are creating a subnet, there's a route, because routing is important. So routing is important. A route is what Azure will create a route that can help us to route traffic between Azure, resources that we have on Azure, and on-premises and internet resources. So how does it work? When we create an Azure virtual network and create a subnet, there's what they call the system default route. But for instance, sometime when we need to have our custom route, we can create them. But Microsoft naturally, Azure has what is called system defined route that help us to route traffic between the resources we have on-prem and in the cloud. So Microsoft Azure Virtual Network is encompassing and it helps you to stay secure. Just as the name implies, once you create any resource of Microsoft Azure, it stays private, except you want it to go out to the public. So let's move on to the next one. And if you have questions, you can either raise your hand or you drop it in the chat. So now the virtual network architecture, this is how it looks. This architecture diagram is taken from the Microsoft Learn, which is everywhere if all of us can go and learn free resources provided by Microsoft. So you can see that everything here is being segmented into subnets. So this architecture is simply for an entire application. If you want to build an entire application and architecture, and also the entire virtual network has been subdivided into different subnets based on workloads. Like we have the web tier subnet, we have that's the web tier subnet contains the user interface. This is where the users directly interact with whatever we have, the web tier subnet. Now we also have the business tier subnet. Business tier subnet in this case operate the business logic. For instance, in every application that you have, there are business logic and data that controls the system, the entire system. Business logic holds the kind of system data that control how the system is operating, the system operation entirely. So such data has to be segmented into a different subnet. And if you observe, each of them are being controlled by network security group. So we also have the database subnet, mostly referred to in this diagram as data subnet. Now this data subnet holds the data source. Everything that has to do with data, if you observe, is not going directly to the internet. Then we have the Jumpbox VM, which serve as a Jumpbox VM can be in form of a hub. Most time, mostly that give out the IP addresses to other users. So we also have in now going into the idea of this diagram is to create and bind each of the virtual machine that we have. You bind the virtual machine into different subnets, and it's a very useful way that we can assign one network system network security group to each subnet, and we can control the flow of traffic between them. So in this kind of diagram, in this kind of setting, it enables us to control traffic that comes in to each of the subnets. So we are not being overwhelmed with the traffic or with the system, maybe some attack, some external attack that can come in. So by segmenting your network in this format, you're able to have a very successful network deployment. And also observe that we have load balancers that are there to load balance traffic among all our VMs and all that. So, go ahead.
Okay, sir. So I just want to ask a short question. Good morning, everyone. So without hearing now in this particular setting now, can these particular resources talk to each other, like the Active Directory subnet and the management subnet, without any connection? Can each of them communicate with each other on the same virtual network?
Like, okay, let's assume now they're the same virtual network. They can communicate with each other without network peering, because number
Okay.
one, they're in the same virtual network. Just by segmenting them, by isolating them into different subnets, does not mean that they're not in the same virtual network. The only thing you can do is to turn off firewalls. You need to turn off the system, the VM now. For each of the VM, there is what they call a system firewall. You need to turn them off for the other one to be able to reach the other one. Does that answer your question? You have another question? Okay.
Okay, so what if you did not turn the firewall off? Or maybe, for instance, now, for security reasons, you don't want some
Yeah.
particular resource to be able to communicate with another resources, even if they're on the same virtual network. Can we do that?
Okay.
Like,
Yes, you can do that. What you can do mostly in a larger environment, you can bring in firewall device like Sophos or FortiGate or Fortinet. Then you can control access. Like in this kind of environment, you can control access using external firewall device, like I mentioned. Most of the things we use, I have an environment similar to this. So I use an environment called Captive Portal on our Sophos firewall interface to control the interaction between machines or between individual and the machine. So you can actually use external firewall to do that. So even if when you disable the internal firewall, that maybe the Windows firewall within the VM, the external attack is limited. Once there's another like a H firewall, like H firewall device like Sophos and other ones. Do you have my point? Do you get my point?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Apologies, you guys might be hearing some. So now we have a resource group. Why I'm bringing this thing is in case most of us who are joining this call are new to Microsoft Azure. Of course, all the resources that we create in a Microsoft Azure must be stored in a logical folder. The resource group is similar to like a folder on your local system, just as you will create files and group them in your local system for a kind of for simplicity and organization. That's the way Azure Resource Groups it works in Azure. But Azure Resource Group goes beyond that. With Azure Resource Group, you're able to maybe categorize your resource based on cost. You're able to fetch the costing based on department or based on tax and all that. So resource group really is what help us to organize all related resources together on Microsoft Azure. So I'm saying this because when we are creating the demo, we need resource group, of course, to be able to meet up. So now I will go ahead to talk about NIC. A network interface is a key resource when it comes to virtual networking. You cannot make your resource to communicate or to be connected to virtual network without having to attach a NIC. So now so a NIC or a network interface in Azure is primarily used to enable Azure resources, such as virtual machines, to connect to a virtual network. Connecting to a virtual network does not mean that it has public access. No, it is until public IP address is attached. Now, this by attaching NIC to your resource or to your virtual network, it allows the resource to communicate with other resources within the same virtual network across different virtual network or even with on-premises networks. Now, I'm going to explain that. Just based on the question that you just asked, if you have that architecture I showed now, showed that there is a single virtual network, and they are assumed to be in the same region. In fact, it's one region, one virtual network. And now NIC, why those VMs are able to communicate with each other is because there's a network interface card that is attached to each of them. And this network interface card is attached to those resources. So now you can as well do this with VMs across region by initiating what is called VNet peering. When you pair a virtual network together, maybe one virtual network from one region, EU1 and EU2, meaning you are simply utilizing the service of a feature called network peering. And any resource that are in those virtual network will be able to talk to each other. The same thing with on-premises. Like on-premises now, if not the rigorous process of going to the extent of setting up the firewall device, because before you can deploy site-to-site successfully, you need to have an external firewall, edge firewall device like Sophos or FortiGate, or Palo Alto device as well. So if you want to do that, you need to set up site-to-site connectivity. Site-to-site connection is when you are establishing connection from Microsoft Azure to a corporate environment. Like let's, for instance, company ABC is setting up their on-premises and they need to talk to resources on Microsoft Azure, so they can just simply set up site-to-site connectivity, and they will require a VPN device. Most recommended VPN devices that I've used and I've worked are, I made mention of Sophos severally. I also made mention of FortiGate device owned by Fortinet. So there's also Palo Alto Network VPN device. So those three devices are the leading VPN device that is mostly supported by Microsoft Azure. There are other ones. I've not used other ones except these three. So now you need to establish that. So how about if you have remote users who are working for you in maybe we are in Nigeria, which is the EMEA region, someone or which is the African region. You have people working for you in the EU region or in the US region. So in this case, you need to, because if you are setting up only site-to-site connectivity, your remote user will not be able to still connect as well. So in that case, that is where point to site VPN connectivity comes in. So while site-to-site VPN connection support you connecting from Azure to the network environment, point-to-site connectivity, VPN connectivity support you when you establish connection to individual devices that are being used by your remote user. So those are the major differences. So in this case, this where you can even make devices that are on premises to communicate to Azure by attaching the the network interface card. So now we have what is called subnet now. Subnet is very key, just as I've been explaining before. Bear in mind that now another thing is that, okay, when we are talking about NSG, I will explain more. Subnet, like I said before, it simply helps you and I to have a range of IP addresses within a virtual network. I said before, why we need to do this is because we have a very limited IP addressing when it comes to IP version 4. And therefore, we need to create several range for our IPs in order to meet our needs. And most time, you need to be careful to also avoid redundancies. When we are creating our range of IP address, if you know that your environment, you do not need much IP, there's no need to expand or there's no need to use /16. Because if you use the CIDR range, there's a small place I usually use to, that CIDR, let me see, CIDR X, XY, CIDR range, that is CD.xy. Let me see if I can get that. So you can calculate the range that you need. So for you to avoid redundancy, in terms of, if you look at this one, /28 will give you only 16 IP address. So the lower the CIDR range, the higher the number. If you observe that if you have up to 16 IP, 536 IPs, it might cause redundancy in your environment. So instead of that, best practice is that you should set your range, your IP range, based on what you actually need to do. If you have a small environment, nothing wrong with going with /20, but you can manage this. This IP address is manageable. So the larger the IP address range, the more redundance you get in terms of network speed and all those things, connectivity. So that's also what taking note of. Now let's go. If you have a question, let me know. Now, we also have what is called public IP address, which is a major component of Azure Virtual Network. It's Azure public IPs, in this case, is what allows your device or your resource in Azure to be talking to public internet. So in this case, we have it to be is used for enabling inbound connections from the internet to Azure resources, such as virtual machine load balancers or application gateways. It allows these resources to be reachable from outside the Azure Virtual Network. But then it is not best practice for you to create public IP address for all your resources. We only create public IP address when it is required. In fact, the best practice is to create a policy. Like I have an environment where I have policies created that nobody should attach NIC and public IP to all the resources. It is only when we need it that we can now create policy exception for those resources. So whenever we are done with it, we just make sure that we enable the policy definition to block unauthorized creation of a public IP addressing our NIC, because these are the ways the external penetrators, those hackers, can enter into our environment. Another one for you to also do is that by default, it's not best practice. It is not authorized that you open up your port for 3389, for the 22 for SSH connectivity, port 443 and port 80. It is not authorized. It is not best practice. So don't do this except you need it. So instead, Microsoft Azure has put in place stuff like a network security group for you to be able to make use of it whenever you need it. So another one is we are going to the network security group. Now I'm going to ask a question for the audience. I'm going to create a question, and a lot of us has been working with Azure before now. So if you were to, where can you attach what's it called? Where can you attach NIC to? Of the various components of Azure Virtual Network, I just mention of internet card, network interface, and the subnet. Where can you attach? Which of the components can you associate NSG? If you are given an environment to work on and you are working, where can you attach NSG to? Is it to the subnet, or to the network interface. Okay, is an assignment before you finish. Someone should drop a chat. Now we have a network interface, a network security group to be a security feature used to control network traffic and from Azure resources within a virtual network. So if you have energy contain a list of security rules that allow or deny inbound and outbound traffic based on factors like source IP address, destination IP address, port, and protocol. So when we are going to do that, you're going to see it that you can actually do those things. Like you can actually segment IP based on IP address, destination, port, and all that. So let me check if there's any answer to my question in the chat. Network interface, okay. Wisdom. Any other contrary opinion to that? Now, virtual network peering, like the name implies, when you pair something, meaning you are joining two things together. And as shown in the diagram on the screen, we have two virtual networks, and the arrow is going back and forth, meaning there's replication in this case. So network peering is a feature that allows the connection of two or more virtual networks, VNet, together. The virtual networks can be in the same or different Azure regions, and peering enables them to function as if they were part of the same network. Now we have, if you note of the display that I say they can be in the same region. So when they're in the same region, in peering language, there are two types of peering. We have the global and the regional peering. So the regional peering is when you have the same virtual network in the same region. You have the virtual network to be in the same region. Then it is global when you have one VNet in the EU region, maybe to the US East 1 or East 2 region. So it is global then when you have the cross-regional peering. So I want to see if there's any other contrary opinion. Wisdom, are you sure it's only network interface you can attach energy to? Or you can associate energy to? We'll get to know when we finish the demo. So now we want to do a quick demo that will stick to what we've discussed so far. So if you are with your laptop, you can just switch to Azure Portal. And now what the first thing to create is virtual network. So the diagram I have, due to our time, so I have to just prepare this diagram. Now we have the global peering, where we have the US is 1 and the US is 2. We have our, okay, can be attached to resource as well as IE virtual machine. Don't worry, we'll come to that. So now we have, this is global peering and this is regional peering. You know, I made mention of side-to-side connectivity, where you have it to a corporate data center, and this point-to-side, where you have it to endpoint, to client systems. So all the things we do on Microsoft Azure, most common connection cut across this. But aside it, there are also several ways for you to connect to Microsoft. You can use Express Route, which runs under Microsoft on Microsoft backbone network. Express route does not pass through public internet at all. You can also use private link. That's another important, the most secure way, private link. So if you are preparing for your AZ-104 and you see a question that asks you, what is the most secure way of establishing connection between resources on Azure and on premises? Is private link. Private link is not only, in fact, we can use it for all the resources on Azure, even Azure storage. I think I recently used that private link about last week. So it's really a very useful resource. Now, in this place, we are going to create virtual network. If you can't find it here, you can go to all resource. I'll just pick it here. Virtual network. But I don't have it already up. So I'm going to search for it. We are going to create two virtual network. One of them will be, two of them will be in different regions. Then we will deploy You will deploy a virtual machine, two virtual machines into the same virtual network, but different subnets. And now be able to make these two virtual machines in the same network, but different subnets to talk to one another. It will now pair this VNet in maybe East US 1 with the one in the other region, then have a VM in that one talk to these other ones. So that's a simple, a simple this thing we're going to just do this morning. So let me just do my resource group. So I will put the name of this thing. I can just put it to be VNet 1, and I'll leave it in the North Europe, not Europe. Then another one is for me to work with my IP addresses. I can delete this default, or I can leave it. If you delete it, delete everything, then start afresh. Now add it. You can now say, okay, I want to use this one to be /20. Let me use /20. And then let me have enough IP address. I have 4,096 IPs. So I will add my subnet. I can give the name of my subnet as subnet 1. Now I'll leave it at /24. By default, it pick it. /24. I'll just add it. So I'll review and create. So while that is being created, let me quickly create another one in another region. The other one is in the East US, North Europe. So I'm going to put this one in East US too, or West Europe. So also, I'm going to use a different resource group. You can use one resource. You cannot, because I'm going to use a different region. No, you need to create a different resource group. So I'm going to make this one to be my RT2. So I'll put it, the name will be VNet2. In this region, I'll select, let me use, I can use UK South, still in Europe. And I'll go, sorry, I'm not supposed to, I need to define my IP addressing first. So I'll define my IP address. This one I'll use /20 as well. Then also, I can leave it as default, or I can just edit this and put the name to be subnet 2. So now this one is ready. Oh, I think it's great. Okay, let me just. Deployment is being submitted. Let me quickly prepare to create my virtual machine. That's our time. I'm going to drop this in my resource group that I have my VNet 1 in. I can put it in different resource group if I wish, but for proper organization of resources, it's best practices that are in the same district. So I will use this one to be VM1, the name, no redundancies required. I'm going to use a Windows image. So by default, like I said, I'm going to put my username, my password. So in this place, I'm not going to allow any port. I will use it to explain NSG. So under networking, which is where our emphasis is if you observe, it has already picked the subnet here, subnet 1. So, okay, yeah, good. Public, is the public? Oh, no, I'm not going to attack public IP address first. I'll leave it. So the VM has no, which is the most secure way. There's no public interference access at all. So while that is being created, I'm going to launch another VM into VNet 2. I'll call it VM2. So I will close the port. So it's in VNet 2 already. Remove the public IP address and review and create. So we have deployed to virtual machine now into the different virtual network. Now let's deploy another VM into VNet 1. I'll need to have 2 virtual machines in one VNet. I'll call it VNet, the other one is VNet 1. Okay, I'll call it VNet 3. The VNet VM3, so VM3. So go to the virtual networking tab and the same listing. Now I will manage my subnet configuration. I will be able to, I don't want them to be in the same subnet. I want all of them to be in different subnet. Subnet 2, and I will add it. I will return to this place and select subnet 2. Does not have enough, subnet does not have enough capacity. Oh, 20. Okay. So do you see the limitation here? And there being the IP address, the range that I chose before was up to maybe 16. I will have enough capacity. So that's another thing I was trying to explain that time, that when you are creating it, you need to know based on the workload that you want to deploy, you need to know the CIDR range to choose from. So I'm going to leave them in the same subnet because of that limitation. So I'll close my ports, none of them will be open. Public IP none, then I'll just create it. Okay. Now let's assess the resources we have created so far. We have, let's start with the VM2, which is in this VNet 2. So in this VNet 2 now, we look at the address spaces. We have this already there. So I can as well add additional address spaces here. So I'm going to do something in VNet 2, VNet 1 after it has finished. So let me go to subnet. We have the subnet here. So let's go to, now this is VNet 1. Let's go to the VM itself. On that VM, which is VM2. we're going to make sure that the network interface card here, we are able to. Now, if you observe what you have here, the NSG by default will be created. You open it, you see that the NSG is created according to that VM. So the person that says the NSG can be attached to VM, the NSG can only be attached, it can be attached to network interface and subnet. You can associate energy to subnet as well. So those two resources can take energy. Now let's go to energy in interface and do the inbound and outbound access. Allow those ports. Now in this place now, this is the energy I want to work on. That is the for VNet VM2 now. So in this place, we are going to add under inbound rules, we are going to add a port number called 3389. That is RDP port number. So the port here will be 3389. Name will be RDP. The is allowed any. So go to add. Another one we need to work on is, okay, sorry, I didn't create this. Let's quickly go back to, now these are the outbound rules. We don't have anything to do with outbound rules first. Now let's go back to NSG1, which controls the VM 1. We go to the inbound rule, add RDP 3389. Now, priority number is there. Okay, I didn't speak about this priority number. So priority number is that the lower the number, the higher the preference. If a priority number is lower, it actually takes more effect than the one that is higher. So that's the way it works. So we have that allowed. Now, if you go to, you need to create a public IP address. Now go to search for public IP. Okay, let's even check the VM that we created already. Go to the VM, check VM1. Under here, you do not have public IP address. What you can have is only private IP address here. And for this, for me to be able to connect to it, I need public IP address. So I'm going to just go to public IP address interface and create one. I'll create one for VM1 and then one for, let me say, be in this one. I'll create one for network interface card that's attached to, this is in the same region, should be in North Europe. So I will just put the name VM1 IP. So I will zone redundant, no, I don't need, leave it as standard. Now I will create many timeouts for DNS. If I want to put in a DNS name, I can define it here. But that means people can access the resource on my VM using this DNS as my IP address. Public IP address can be translated. Well, for me to do that, I need to configure some DNS record. Public to translate public IP address here, I need to add an A record to my DNS record zone. So I'm going to just leave it as is and then review and create. So while that is being done, let's go to this. We have added this thing to VNet. Let's go back to network interface, network security group, and configure the for VM2. We added some inbound routing. Okay, I've added that. Okay, let me add the So leave it at particularly inline RDP. So while that is being done, let's create another public, let's associate this public IP address first of all to VM1. Now under here, from the overview page, you see an associate here. So look for a network interface card that I need to do. In this case, I wanted to go for VM1. Look at VM1 here. There is a network interface card that's attached to VM1. So I'll just associate that. So you can only do this if it's required. Normally, most of the things you are doing is actually private connectivity. So you don't need to, it might not require it until you need it. So another one is to create a public IP address for two more public IP addresses should be created now. This one will go into this same public resource group, and we'll name it VM2, VM3 public IP. Zero redundant is none, and everything is okay. So now if we go to the VM that VM1 now, you should be able to see the public IP address. Now you can RDP into this, into your VM. So we have done that. Now another one is to have the VM1 now. So another one is to attach. I've created that. Okay, let me create this. I want to create another public IP address for the other virtual machine. I'm going to go back in. Public IP address. I'll create one. It will be in my RD2, and UK South is the region. So now I'll put the name as VM2 pipe, leave it as standard, no zone redundant, and create. Now if we go to the list of let me go to my public IP addresses. The other one has been created, so let me associate this to VM3. Remember VM3 and this. The network interface connected to VM3. So that's how you can do it. While that one is being created, let us carry out VNet pairing. Now we are pairing VNet in the North Europe to the VNet in the UK South. So go to Virtual Network, open to VNet 1. Under pairing, so you add to, now remote name is VNet 1. VNet 2. Leave it at the resource manager. Don't go to classic. Now virtual network. VNet 2. Oh, this is another thing. I didn't pay attention to it. But let me see. The address is overlapping. So let me do something. Let me do something now. Let's go back to VNet 1. Oh no, VNet 2. On that VNet 2 now, you can come to address space, add a new address space. Let's say 10.0.1.0. Now another one slash 22. So that range might be, it's not a valid block. Use this. Okay. Let me use 0.22 here. Labs address space on this address space within this cannot overlap. Okay. Now let me use dot one. Now we have that. We have a different address in the VNet 2. Okay, so that's it. I can delete this one. Can delete that one. So let this one be the only one that is in VNet 2. So it can be different from the other one. But let me see. Fail to save address space changes to this VNet 2 error. Subnet 2 is not valid because its address range is outside. Okay. Now let me leave this one as is. Go back to subnet. And I implement top. Now the subnet is here. You can't edit this subnet. So what you can do is to add another subnet that falls between the address range. This is 0/24. Then put this one to be subnet 3. Well, okay, let me check the address space that I could define for this guy. 20, 22, 1. It's very two. Then the 1.0.0/22. Okay, so this is the address space here that I want to add. I can't save it here. Let me go back and adjust the subnet 3. Okay. Okay, subnet range is not containing this. Oh, there's an error here because the address namespace and number one, you can't delete the default except until you add another one. So initially, what I'm going to do now is to delete. I will delete VNet in this case because, okay, now let me see if this can go out. That has gone out. So if you save it, it can work because the subnet there is not having a valid IP address. So the error was at the time of creation. So what I'm going to do is to delete this particular VNet now is associated to VM3, no VM2. So I'm going to create another VNet immediately. Let me create one of these VNets. And I will create it, put it in the same region that is R2 is in the south. I'll call this one VNet 3. VNet 3, sorry. So I'll just go to the address space. This one I will assign one, I'll take /22. So that is it. There's something already set there. Subnet 3. I will save this. Now, if you are faced with some of this error, You need to know how you can manage, you can troubleshoot it. That's another thing. Okay, so now let's go back to VM virtual machine. Virtual machine 2 was deployed into subnet 2. No, virtual network 2, which I'm not going to use that again. Let me quickly just launch one of the virtual machine to take that. I'll call this one VM4. So I'll put the indicates out. Since I've already shown us this adding of rows and all that, let me leave that as, let me create it with the VNet 3. Okay. Public IP should be attached because I've already shown us how to do that. So great. Now I'm going to go and delete VNet 2. Or I can enjoy it, but I won't pay that one again because of the overlapping IP address space. Okay, so now let's go back to VNet 1 and create the pairing between VNet 1 and 4. Or 3, yes, VNet 1 and 3. VNet 1 to VNet 3. Now this VNet 3. So he didn't report that error again. So I'll just add this. You can allow all this if you have. You can allow VNet to receive forwarded traffic, or maybe allow gateway or route server in VNet 1 to forward traffic to VNet 3. Now, if you are using route server, or if you have VPN gateway and all those things in place, but we do not have it, you can just leave it. You can use it as a remote server as well if you have the resource in place already. So you just leave it in these two, and then create the pairing. So bear in mind that you see that the error we encounter now, that you can, when creating it, need to pay attention that the IP address, despite that the VNet are in this, in different region, and their subnet, their address space must not overlap. Otherwise, you cannot create pairing. If it was the fact that we don't want to create pairing, would be fine, nothing will happen, as long as they are not in the same VNet. So now we have created the pairing now. I have my VM in the, I think I have VM1 already running. Okay, this is VM1 running already. So let's go to, let me check the number of VM now. For public IP address, I have either of them. So I have public IP address for 2. Okay, everything is fine. So let's go to virtual machines. Virtual machine 2 is not going to be working for us. Let's go to virtual machine 3 because this one is in VNet 2. We have a question, Nasir. You can ask.
Yes,
Now we have our
exactly,
public
Nasser.
applications.
It's
Okay.
Nasser from Ghana. Hi everyone.
Okay,
So
Nasir. Thank you.
so I actually tried this pairing, and I realized that I tried to ping the two servers, okay, which after they are being paired, but then they were not pairing. The only way they started pairing was when I took off the firewall, which is the guest level firewall. I mean, what could be the case? Or maybe there's a particular port that allows the pairing, I don't know. So the only way the
No, you
pairing
need
worked
to,
for me was
you
to
need
put
to
on firewall.
yes, you need to remove the firewall.
Wow.
So
Okay.
although some environment does not allow removing of firewall, like I explained, if you had joined earlier, someone asked a similar question. If you find yourself in an environment where there's peering, and of course the firewall in the inbuilt firewall for the this thing, what's it called, for the VM will not allow you to ping. So you need to disable those firewall. In that case, you can now shift your firewall protection to an edge firewall device.
Okay.
In your environment. Let's assume it's a production environment. So you don't rely on the Windows firewall because they cannot give you optimum protection. So disabling it does not cause any problem as long as you have handed that responsibility to an edge firewall device like Sophos, Palo Alto, or Cisco.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So let me log into VM. I'm signing into VM3. VM3 and VM1 are in the same subnet 1, are the same VNets and the same subnet as well. So here now I have VM2. Let me also sign into the other VM called VM4. That VM3 is the one I just signed. Okay, VM4 is in VNet 3, which is in the South UK. Okay, I think there's a question. With the recording, okay, sorry. Now let's go back and let's remote quickly into the VM3, VM4. Now, so let me take it out. So what we are doing, the pairing we are doing now is a global pairing. The virtual networks are not in the same region, but are in across regions. So now we have the three VM now coming up together. And let's start with VM1. Here's VM1 here, the public IP address. Under local server, you see the name is VM1. So for you to be able to ping this, like we discussed, you need to turn off this firewall. Because you cannot, the only way you can connect, let's assume something, I want to connect to, remember that VM1 and VM3 are in the same virtual network. So now let's ping even when you're pinging the private address of VM3, let's see something. Now let's go to CMD in the interface of this thing. Let's go back to VM2 and is it on the same network? Okay, VM3. This is VM3 and the same network, virtual network 1. So let's pick the private IP address, .5. Go back to VM1 and ping it and see what happens. 10.0.0.0, no, .5. You see that it does not ping. So it is bad that they're in the same virtual network. They cannot ping until you turn off those firewalls on both VM, on the VM3. Yes, I need to turn off that firewall on VM3. So another thing I would like to show us is that if you want to make VM, let's assume you want to use an Azure VM to serve the purpose of maybe what's called a domain controller, where you have users that are, maybe you create a VM that are Windows 11 and all that. You need to turn one of the VM that is a window that serves as a domain controller. You need to turn it to a DNS server before you can do that. In that case, you need to go back to Azure Portal and add a static IP address, public IP address. Well, normally, if you create a public IP address, it's automatic, it is dynamic, and it keep changes. So I'm just saying that will not be covered for today. But then now this VM4, which is the different network. Let's quickly use this opportunity to turn off the firewall here. Then it's different this thing. So we have that on off private and public firewall. So we have turned off all the firewalls in this one. So let's go back to VM1, which is in another virtual network, and ping the other one, and ping VM4. I think VM4, yes. Okay, let's be sure. This is VM4. Let's go to the portal and check the private IP address of this VM4. To be .1.4, okay. 10.1.0.4. So going back to VM1 now, you say ping .10.1.0.4. So they are talking to each other. Okay. Now another one I wanted to show something now. For you to remote, we need to remote to. Okay, now let's even try the remoting. I want to use the public IP address now of VM1 on this one. If I run my RDP here, if I go back and pick the public IP address of VM1, which is this guy, and come back to VM4, in this case, VM4, in this VM, okay, here this VM4. I'll open up the, no, sorry. I'm supposed to pick VM4 public IP address is what I'm going to pick. I want to do the connection from VM1. Okay. On that VM1, I will just paste that public IP address of VM4. So you see that I can interact with it. I can connect, I can RDP into VM4 through VM1. Despite that they're in the same different network because of peering. Okay, I can hear you, Oyemafo. Go
Hello, sir.
ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. I don't know, can we try using the private IP and see if we can remote to it since they are on the same network? Can we try?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you,
You
sir.
can let's try that. Let's try that. Okay. You're welcome. So now this is VM4 in VM1. So now let's close out this one. Let's disconnect it and go back to. Let's use public IP address. I know private IP address now in this case. Let me go to VM1 again. This is VM1. Let me check the local name. Okay, this is VM4. Let me remote again to. Sorry, let me do something. VM4. Let me minimize this. VM1. This should be VM1. Okay, let me log into VM1 again through my own interface. Under VM1, I pick this. Okay. I will have just remote from VM4 to VM1, but I did not turn off the firewall in VM1. So I doubt that will block it. So this is VM1 now. I want to remote into VM4. The private IP address there is 10.1.0.4. Let me verify that. VM4. So we have it. Okay. So I'll just connect to it. Now you can as well remote into it from here with private IP address. So Emmanuel, this is what we needed to do, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I have
All
another
right, so,
question.
Okay,
sir.
go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, when you were presenting, you were advising that you advise maybe us creating a virtual machine, we shouldn't create it with a public IP. Let's take Paraventure now.
Yes.
A company that don't have, let's say, point-to-site VPN that connects their virtual network, that connect their end users' workstation to their virtual network in Azure. How can they connect to their? I don't know. I've thought of it, but I don't know how it's going to be. How can they connect to their virtual machine?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. They use a private IP address now. They use network peering, VNet peering and private IP address.
Okay, sir. That means the networking team has to establish a connectivity between their virtual network in Azure.
Yes. Azure and on premises, yes.
Okay, sir.
Another
okay,
one,
sir.
let me also explain that. You know, I strip you something that, let's assume this VM1, I want to make it a DC, a domain controller. You know, in that domain controller, I'm going to launch Windows 11 for my users. I'll make them to be Active Directory users. So if I go to Microsoft Azure now, at this Azure portal, I go to my public IP address. Let's check public IP. Okay, which one is attached to? If I go to public IP1, which is the one attached to this guy, under address configuration, okay, it's not here. Let's go to subnet. Subnet, I think VM1 is in subnet 1. Okay. If I go to my subnet, let me click here, go to this VNet 1. My subnet now. Okay. Under this address space, did you see? I think it's IP configuration. It should be on a public IP. Okay, now this is DNS server. I want this system to be able to serve as a server to you, who is my user now. Because when I'm turn my VM1, I turn my VM1 to a DC. It is not VM1 that will list IP address to you as an Active Directory user in my environment. It is Microsoft Azure Virtual Network that will release it. And you can only achieve that using the DNS server by converting this VNet to serve as a DNS server. Does that answer your question? Does that sound like something you should try out? Now I'm going to do my IP address. Exactly the same way that exactly IP address that was attached when I was creating this VNet. So if I save this one now, automatically this VNet is serving as a DNS server as well. So when I go to my VNet now, to my VM, already my VM, let's assume is a DC now, domain controller. I create user on my Active Directory users now. So I'll be able to reach you, and you're also going to be able to reach me. Now, to buttress the other question that you asked before, what if the company does not have the capacity to set up site-to-site connectivity? Which, site-to-site connectivity involves them buying third-party resource. So peering is enough for them to be able to access their okay, no, it's not enough. Point of correction is not enough because, of course, the first VM they have to gain access to one VM, at least to be able to achieve what I'm trying to explain now. You need to gain access to one VM. So site-to-site connectivity is the way to go when you don't want to have any public IP address. in their environment, but still being able to access. Public IP address is meant for maybe external users that want to, who is not within your network. So another one I also want to say about, if you are familiar with, maybe take this one as an assignment, you can go and practice it. If you are called to deploy maybe Microsoft Azure Virtual Machine with a SQL server, you can create a public access to somebody who stays somewhere without having to be among your network. So that's another thing. You can directly connect to your database because I've open access. So for instance, if I show us the existing DB that I have here, a DB virtual machine that I have, this database virtual machine enables people anywhere can, as far as you are among the team, the application team, you can remote into this DB database server, and that's done using the port number. If I go to my network settings, that's the NSG. If I go to my NSG interface, I have opened all the ports that enable public access to that database. So from my own end here, all I just need to do is to go to my this thing and open up my PGME, which is for Postgre database, and connect to that database without having to worry about logging into that VM. So you can as well achieve this by building a highly scalable database and enable people to work without having to be in your network environment. You understand what I mean? Now, this DB is hosted in Azure server, Azure VM. But then I don't need to log into my Azure VM before I can see the DB. So you need to make it available. For you to make it available, like I said, there are some records you need to add. You need to allow access, inbound and outbound access to in your NSG. So that's another way you can do that. If you observe, I've allowed all this port. I've also go to outbound. I've allowed this port number. So as you go into the learning journey, as you continue in your learning journey, I would like you to pay attention to Azure Virtual Network documentation, because I always told people that the best way to learn more, mostly when you're adopting the self-taught method, is to pay attention to documentation of a particular product. There's nothing, even if you want to learn the whole Kubernetes, let's say you want to learn Kubernetes now, the only place you can get the rightful information is the Kubernetes documentation. Terraform, virtual network, any resource is to pay attention to those the documentation of that resource. So at this point, I will ask if there's any question that you need to ask. Do you have any other question? In the absence of another question or anything, I would like to bring the section to a close at this point. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, man, we have question. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. No, it's not a question. Like, I like this community, but I'm not a member of the community, like in any group chat or like some of the people here now. I don't know them, and I would like to network with them in case of maybe to learn other things, like you said, to grow more in the field. Thank you very much for your time, sir. I really appreciate it, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm just a member of the community. We have this Azure group, WhatsApp group, Azure Nigeria user group. So I can send you a link so you can join there, and I would accept you as an admin. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. I'll be grateful, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I also like to join the group. If
sounds interesting. If you can drop your phone number, your WhatsApp number, then I would invite you to the WhatsApp community. That's where we have these talks on Azure and learn and ask questions. So you need help with your certification or something is confusing. Somebody was always there answering you back.
Okay, that's great. Nasri, your hand is up. You have a question?
Yes, another question about networking. So,
Okay.
Is it possible to ping public IP addresses from VMs? Like how we ping private IP address on the same network? Is it possible to ping both?
You can ping.
So
I think it's possible. I haven't done that before, to be honest. I haven't pinged
okay.
public IP address. We have always used, but when to know it is but to know it is to do it. So I still have my VM up. Let me share my screen again and we ping it and see. This is VM, this is VM3. Did I turn off? Okay, let me deal mostly with VM1 and 4. Those were the one I have okay, this is VM1. I'm going to go up there and pick the public IP address for VNet 4. Quickly, let's do. Now I pick it. I go to VNet VM1. I open my CMD and say ping. See, it's not ping.
Yes, I expected that because it's something that I actually figured out, and I was wondering why Microsoft made it so, because I believe that IP addresses from the internet, so you should be able to ping a public IP address from anywhere, but it seems it's not possible.
No. It's not possible. Well, let me tell you why it's not possible. You cannot ping it because number one, the public IP address are standalone resource on Azure. This part is attached to a VM. You understand that point?
Yes, it makes sense.
And in general context, you can't just ping public IP address like that. If there might be some configuration you need to do from your backend. I know that you can ping public IP address, but you must do some stuff behind the scene.
Okay.
Okay, Emmanuel, you have question.
Okay, so my question, you have just answered my question, because my question was like, okay, what if this virtual machine is posting an application and users need to, that application is the public IP now of this VM is what the application is using. So how will it now be?
Okay.
Or you just some configuration?
Okay, another way is that let's assume I'm hosting application. I'm hosting like maybe a calendar on this server using IIS. So what I'm going to do in my own is to do port forwarding on my network device. It could be a Cisco, it could be Ubiquiti device. I can also use VPN. If I deploy a VPN, maybe an open VPN that is not attached to Azure at all, people will still access my app. And now for Azure again, if I want people to also access that app, I can use a DNS. Do you remember when I was getting my public IP address? There was a place for me to route it to DNS. So what I can just do is to add a DNS name, then add an error code to translate that public IP address to a DNS name. So people are visiting my website. Like, you understand my point now?
Yes, sir.
So that does it. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Mauga CJ, over to you. Nice. Thank you for having me once again.
It's a pleasure to have you, Mr. Imo. I look forward to having you and you joining us more in the future. So it's a pleasure. Somebody's raising his hand. Oyemafu.
Okay, Oyemafu.
Oh, well, that's a country, because I know Mr. Imo is in Nigeria. Well, from your voice, I don't know the country that you are from. Or...
Is it what? Is it the question to me or?
No, to you, sir. Like, tell us where you're from.
Me?
Yes, sir.
I'm from Nigeria, but I'm based in Amsterdam.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. I can see the accent from your voice. Oh.
Amigo.
He's Malga.
Mr. Imo is my brother. And you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys, if there's no other question, let's call it a day. And I'm presenting 2 topics this month regularly, and I look forward to having you guys. Thank you so much, Mr. Imo. Wishing you a nice day and everyone here.
Yeah, you too, yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Ciao.